Hello, this is Theisan from MMA Collector. Every week I will bring in a new piece of memorabilia from my personal collection and even bring in a few collector friends with some of theirs. Our goal is to raise awareness of MMA memorabilia collecting and discuss the historical people and fights that made this sport what it is today. Join me now while we take a stroll down memorabilia lane. Join us this week on MMA Collector to look at a one-of-a-kind piece that belonged to the late, great Kevin Randleman. Hello, I'm Ed Theisan. On today's episode of MMA Collector, we're going to look at Kevin Randleman. He was a fighter out of the Hammer House with Mark Coleman, who fought over in Japan. Pride. He fought the UFC. He was the UFC champion, heavyweight champion at one time. Kevin Randleman rose to prominence as an athlete at Ohio State, where he won a pair of national championship titles in wrestling. Kevin was mentored by Olympian Mark Coleman while in college, and the seeds of the Hammer House were planted. We'll start out with a little item that I have in my hand here. It's an HAO figure. Unfortunately, I don't have the box for this, but these are little figures that were made in Japan, and these are probably mine anyway. Most collectors, these are their favorite figures because they're such detail. I mean, you could even see little veins in Kevin's legs, puts his tattoos right down to fingernails. I mean, these are like really cool little figures right here. Hair color really looks like him. Like, I got this Submission Fighter magazine, like I'll put that up to them, and I mean, they're just such detailed that they are very much the best figures that were made. And limited. They were limited on how many they made, so that there's not a million of them floating around.
Oh yeah, those in Japan there are figures, as you mentioned. This particular company put a lot into it, and also it speaks to Kevin's iconic status in Japan. The guy, he was UFC champion, and didn't make a title fight in or win a title fight in Pride, but he was an icon, and these companies put a lot into him and promoting him, and you can see why. I mean, the charisma and everything. We all know that, and that is some little doll. That's an amazing little thing, huh?
Yeah, it sure is. Kevin made the leap from college to the world stage with ease. Making his first fighting debut in Brazil, he put the world on notice. In the UFC, Randleman won the heavyweight championship, and by the time he got to Pride FC, he was a bona fide star. This is actually the Full Contact Fighter magazine, put out by Joel Gold. He had his own little publication. These are little collector's items in themselves these days. I don't think they were totally mass produced. He had his subscribers that got him. Not everybody would have kept these things. So whenever I come across these little magazines, I like to buy them up. This one in particular's got.
Yeah, Joe Gold put up a labor of love with Full Contact Fighter from the very beginning. He was making that, out of his home in Queens. And, just to give him a little shout out, it's not a magazine, it's a paper.
It's a paper, yeah.
That's what he used to say, because like a newspaper, he liked it. And a magazine and switching the color is a big deal, like in terms of publication, like on a monthly and stuff. And it was just the kind of thing, it was always a goal. And I think he kept it as a newspaper until the end.
Yeah, I had a chance to meet Joel, and I purchased a few pieces of memorabilia from him. He sponsored lots of fighters through the years, so he amassed a pretty nice little collection of items, that I'd purchased from him. The Macho Murilo Ninja Hua was Randleman's third appearance in Pride, and it was the first real test. A tactical and grueling battle, Randleman came out with a win when Hua could not continue due to cuts. The event poster here from UFC 26 with Randleman versus Hizzo. This was a title defense for Kevin Randleman.
There you go.
And Kevin ended up winning a 5-round decision against Hizzo in this fight.
Yep, and again, UFC 26. We are in deep in UFC history now. Taping in 2023 here. That's more than 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's starting to they're becoming antiques now, some of these things.
For sure.
You look at the sport, it seems like such a new sport, but now we're getting into the 30-year anniversary of it this year. So,
Absolutely so.
well, now I'll show you another shirt. I always seem to have a shirt for each item, but this is one that I really like. This was a Hammer House
Oh
T-shirt,
yeah,
and on the front you got Kevin Randleman, Extreme Fighting. Pretty cool little.
definitely
This one
cool.
was actually worn. It might have been worn in training because there's little blood spots on it here and there. So, or a bar brawl, or who knows what. But this one isn't brand new. I
That's
got
very,
most of the
very
stuff. Might have been Mark's or Wes's. This came from Mark Coleman and Wes Sims.
yeah, no matter who it was, you can guarantee that they had a big old back to put that shirt
Oh
on.
yeah, they sure did.
Maybe
No,
it was Kevin himself. Now I know usually this is all beautiful stuff. We can wrap it up now, but I know you usually have.
back then, Pride sent handlers to retrieve the gloves after the fights so that they could be auctioned off. On this occasion, one of the gloves was misplaced in Kevin's bag and not returned. Sorry, Pride.
Bring it on home, Ed. Show us what you got. I know you got an item you're real proud of here.
Well, this is my favorite item right here, and I only have one of them. But this is the glove that Kevin Randleman wore in Pride 24 against Mirio Ninja Hua. And Kevin beat that guy as well. And I believe, let me think about it. I think it was a stoppage due to a cut or something, maybe a corner stoppage for Hua. But Kevin Randleman definitely won the fight. And this is a very nice little piece of memorabilia here.
For sure, that's rare because
I wish I had the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. In those days in Japan, the Pride organization would actually come around and collect the gloves from the fighters. They would take them back so that they could auction them out and, get them autographed and signed. And kind of like the early days of this, that was the actual promotion doing it. So it was a big deal for Kevin to actually have a glove that he could take home. He would have had to, give the Japanese handlers the shuck and jive.
Yeah, there was a story that I was told by Mark Coleman when I purchased it, but I want to say Kevin snuck it out, but the other one they took from him. And I know Mark, I have a couple of Pride gloves of Mark's, and he always tried to keep his whenever he could. But Kevin at least got this one out, and fortunately for us, it's right here in the United States instead of over in Japan right now.
Yep, and with Kevin passing, it makes it more important that someone's keeping this stuff and taking good care of it. Very nice presentation here of Kevin's stuff, including the glove, which has to qualify as a unique museum level item kind of thing.
It is. Yeah, I had the privilege to be at Kevin Randleman's UFC Hall of Fame induction in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, and his wife and Mark Coleman each did speeches on him, and it was a really great night to celebrate the career of Kevin Randleman.
And we just did it again, a little celebration of Kevin Randleman. Thank you very much for the presentation, Ed. Nick Nutter was Kevin Randleman's teammate at Ohio State and at the Hammer House.
Hey, what's up, people? It's Nick Nutter with Mark Coleman's Hammer House and former All-American wrestler at Ohio State. Just wanted to come here today and talk a little bit about one of my teammates, Kevin Randleman, stories that it was, 20 degrees outside, and he gave his Letterman's jacket to a homeless guy. I'm like, you're crazy. That's your Letterman's jacket. He gives him money. He gives him his food from his dinner. But what a giving person. The one that I forgot to mention was he came to visit me my freshman year at Smith Hall, and we were going to play Madden. And he's like, hey, I want to meet your floor, like the floor of people. I'm like, they're not that cool. Like, we don't need to meet them. And anyways, he went banging down the doors. And Randleman was very charismatic. And, he wanted to be the life of the party. I said this before, he could make a funeral fun. He's the only guy that can make a funeral fun. But anyways, he was banging on doors. And there was this one door where nobody really talked to the kid. And we're like, no, don't knock on his door. He's a little awkward. So, but Randleman knocked on his door, and the kid opens the door. He's got big Randleman there with all the veins popping out. He's like, oh, what are you doing? And he's like, I saw you in the lantern, the Ohio State. He's like, "You're the wrestler?" He's like, "Yeah." Well, the kid's like, "Man, I look up to you." Long story short, Randleman rips his shirt off, his Ohio State wrestling shirt, which he has to give back, which I don't know money to give back all this merchandise that he's supposed to return in, but he gave it to this kid. And comes to find out about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks later, this kid has come to the wrestling matches and watching Randleman wearing the shirt. And we had a heart to heart. And the kid was saying, like, that night that he met Randleman, he was writing a suicide note. And he just didn't like life. And man, I forgot all about that one. That would probably be my lead story to talk about Randleman. But he is the guy of the lower people. Most people say, "Oh, get away from him. He's a bum." No, Randleman ran to those people. And man, what a cool thing about that. But that's one story I forgot to tell. And I'm so proud of him. And damn, do I miss that guy.
What can be said about Kevin Randleman? He left us too soon. But before we turn this into a sad remembrance, I want to share the words of his wife, Elizabeth Randleman, while speaking at Kevin's UFC Hall of Fame induction. Let us celebrate Kevin's life like he would have wanted us to. I'll share this insight. At Pride, the interns sent to collect the gloves were usually young 20-somethings, working for free or for some sort of academic credit. The young men wore suits and ties, and they were usually not athletic at all. The images conjured up here are worthy of a skit or a meme. I'm sure on the day Kevin kept this glove, the interns saw a side of Kevin they didn't expect. Perhaps playful, joking, innocent. The intern probably got in very real trouble for not retrieving the glove, but that just has to be chalked up to life experience. Like everyone else, I'm sure that intern never forgot Kevin Randleman.
Join us next episode, where we look at something worn by one of this sport's greatest of all time.
If you enjoyed our video, take a moment to like and share, and subscribe to the MMA Collector on YouTube and join our collector community.